In 1918, the United States built its first tank, a clumsy, borrowed design that could barely outrun a man on foot. 87 years later, the M1 Abrams would become the most feared war machine on Earth, destroying everything in its path during Desert Storm without losing a single tank to enemy fire. This is the complete, devastating evolution of American armor. America's very first tank was a direct copy of the French Renault FT, slow, cramped, and arriving too late for major combat. But it launched a young officer named George Patton into the world of armored warfare, changing history forever. Henry Ford's attempt at a tank, tiny, cheap, and designed for mass production like the Model T. The war ended before it could prove itself on the battlefield. Only 15 were ever completed. The Mark 8 Liberty was America's first heavy tank, a joint American-British project weighing over 36 tons with a crew of 11. It arrived too late for World War I, but proved America could think big, very big. An attempt to modernize American armor that fell flat, heavy, unreliable, and over budget. Only one was ever built, spending more time in the workshop than on the field. Another experiment from the lean years. Faster and lighter, but still crude. The army was still searching for answers on what a tank should look like. The cavalry wanted tanks but couldn't call them tanks, so they called it a combat car. Same machine, different paperwork. Welcome to military bureaucracy at its finest. The first modern-looking American tank. Turret on top, decent speed, machine guns everywhere. Over 500 built. It wasn't great, but it was the foundation for everything that came after. Arriving just as war broke out in Europe, the M2 Medium was already outdated. Reports from Poland and France showed tanks needed bigger guns and thicker armor. America was behind, way behind. America's first attempt at a true heavy tank. Nearly 60 tons, dual guns, thick armor. The army ordered 5,000, then cancelled almost all of them. Only 40 were built. Too heavy, too slow, too complicated. Fast, reliable, and loved by its crews. The Stuart saw action everywhere, from the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of the Pacific. Its gun was too small for serious anti-tank work, but it was there, fighting, and that mattered. A desperate compromise. America needed a 75mm gun tank, but had no turret big enough. Solution? Stick the big gun in the hull. It looked strange, but the Lee fought in North Africa when nothing else was available, buying precious time for what came next. This changed everything. The most important American tank ever built, over 49,000 produced. It fought on every front, in every theater. Not the best tank of the war, but good enough. And there were enough of them. Crews called it the Ronson because it lit up on first strike. They fought anyway. The upgraded Stuart, with twin Cadillac engines and automatic transmission. Smoother, quieter, still quick. A solid scout tank that served well through the entire war. An improvised tank destroyer. A gun on a truck, basically. Crude and vulnerable, but effective in North Africa when nothing else was available. War doesn't wait for perfect solutions. Purpose-built to hunt tanks. Its 3-inch gun could punch through most German armor, but the open turret left crews exposed to artillery and air attacks. A brave machine for brave crews. The fastest armored fighting vehicle of the entire war. 55 miles per hour. Its philosophy was simple. Don't get hit. Get in position. Fire. Relocate. Hit and run. It was devastatingly effective against panzers. Designed to be dropped by glider behind enemy lines. Light, small, and barely armored. The British used them during Operation Varsity in 1945. Tanks from the sky, a bold idea, but the Locust was too fragile to survive. The Chaffee replaced the aging Stuart and was a genuine leap forward. Fast, well-armed for a light tank, and beloved by reconnaissance crews. It went on to serve in Korea, Indochina, and dozens of other conflicts. A true classic. Packing a 90mm gun, the most powerful anti-tank weapon available to American forces in Europe. When Tiger tanks showed up, the Jackson was one of the few vehicles that could answer back. When Shermans were getting chewed up in France, the army packed an extra armor. The Jumbo could absorb hits that would destroy a normal Sherman. Crews volunteered to lead convoys in Jumbos because they trusted that armor. A literal lifesaver. The ultimate Sherman upgrade. New suspension, powerful 76mm gun, better everything. This is the Sherman from Fury. By late 1944, it could finally fight Panthers on something closer to equal terms. Nearly 100 tons of armor, designed to breach the Siegfried line through sheer force. No turret, just a massive gun with armor nothing could penetrate. Only two built. One was lost in a field for years before being rediscovered. Imagine seeing that for the first time. The Pershing arrived just in time. It entered combat in the final months and proved it could go toe-to-toe with Panthers and Tigers. The famous duel in Cologne, caught on camera, a Pershing destroys a Panther at close range. One of the most watched tank clips in history, built to counter anything the Germans could throw. A 105mm gun, heavy armor, massive size. Arrived too late for combat. Never fired a shot in anger, but became a testbed for future American tank designs. Even further than the T-29 with a 155mm gun, the biggest gun ever mounted on an American tank. Pure overkill. Another prototype that taught lessons without ever seeing combat. Named after the legendary general, the M46 was an upgraded Pershing that proved itself in Korea. American tanks were once again in a shooting war. The patent name would become a dynasty. Fast, punchy, and perfect for reconnaissance. Named after General Walton Walker killed in Korea, the Bulldog served with US allies around the world for decades. The second patent. Better rangefinder, better turret, but rushed into service so quickly it was already being replaced within a few years. It became one of the most widely exported American tanks, serving in dozens of countries. The definitive Cold War American tank. It served in Vietnam, the Middle East, and with NATO forces across Europe. Over 12,000 built. Some countries still use upgraded versions today. The tank that held the line while the world held its breath. 6 106mm recoilless rifles strapped to a tiny chassis. It looked insane. It was insane. Marines loved it in Vietnam for urban combat. Each volley was absolutely devastating. Airborne grappable and weighing almost nothing. Crew protection? Basically zero. But it gave paratroopers their own anti-tank capability, which was the whole point. America's last heavy tank, a 120mm gun designed to kill Soviet heavy tanks like the ES-3. Big, slow, and expensive, but it could destroy anything that moved. The concept of heavy tank was already being replaced by the main battle tank. A fascinating experimental design, testing smoothbore guns, composite armor concepts, and new fire control systems. It never entered production, but the technology it tested would show up later in a very famous tank. The M60 ended the Patton dynasty and began the main battle tank era. A 105mm rifle gun, improved armor, and the versatility to handle any threat. Over 15,000 built. America's primary tank for 2 decades. The improved turret design gave better ballistic protection. The workhorse version, the one most countries received, the one that saw the most action in the Middle East and Europe. The future that never was. a joint US-German supertank with guided missiles, a rotating driver's capsule, and cutting-edge everything. Catastrophically over budget, the project collapsed under its own ambition, but its failure led directly to something much, much better. Could be airdropped, could fire missiles made of aluminum armor. The caseless ammunition was unreliable and the armor offered minimal protection. Crews had mixed feelings, but the Sheridan served from Vietnam to Panama to Desert Storm, so it did something right. The budget version of the failed MBT-70. Still too expensive. Cancelled. But everything the Army learned was poured into one final design. The last American tank that would ever need to be built. The Apex Predator. A 1500 horsepower turbine engine. Jobam composite armor. Fire control that could hit a moving target at 45 miles per hour in pitch darkness. In Desert Storm, not a single Abrams was destroyed by enemy fire. This wasn't dominance. This was a different category of warfare. Upgraded to the German Rheinmetall 120mm smoothbore gun with depleted uranium armor. This is the variant that fought in Desert Storm and redefined what was possible in armor warfare. 7 Iraqi T-72s destroyed in under a minute. The Digital Age Abrams. Independent thermal viewer for the commander. Inter-vehicle data links. Digital maps. And battlefield management. A tank that could think as well as fight. The hunter-killer capability made it truly unstoppable. Supposed to replace the Sheridan, a lightweight air-deployable fire support vehicle with a 105mm gun. 6 prototypes built and cancelled due to budget cuts. The airborne community still doesn't have a proper replacement. A 105mm gun on a striker-wheeled chassis, meant for rapid deployment and urban fire support. Lighter, faster, more deployable than an Abrams. Not every fight needs a 70-ton tank. This represented a new way of thinking about armored warfare. From a mud-caked copy of a French tank to the most advanced armored vehicle in human history, 87 years, 43 machines. America didn't always get it right the first time, but it kept iterating. And when it finally got it right, it produced something nobody could match. Subscribe for more military history timelines.